Welcome everyone to FM Corner. I'm Danny Koontz, your host, Director of Relationship Management for Windy City. Today, my guest is Michael Anderson with the DYNE Hospitality Group. He's the Director of Facilities. And we're just going to talk a little bit about facilities and how he and I met and things like that. Should be a great topic, and hope you enjoy. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's kind of jump right in, and we'll start with a question. I think kind of talk about how you and I met. Tell that story a little bit of how it came to be that you and I were sitting in a cafe at RIFMA having a conversation.
Well, a few years ago, there was some changes in my department, and our COO, Melissa Jackson, asked me to reach out. She goes, "Do you know Danny Koontz?" I said, I think I know him on LinkedIn. I think we're connected on LinkedIn. And she says, "Why don't you reach out to him? I used to work with him in the past, and I think he could be a good mentor to you, guiding voice." And I was like, well, sure, I'll reach out to Danny. So sometime later, I finally got the reach out, and I asked if we could have a cup of coffee at RIFMA. So and here we are today. So
yeah, we had a great conversation at RIFMA, just kind of talking about facilities in general, and it's one of the things I think that helps a lot at RIFMA is it's just the opportunity to talk to other people who have done or do the same job that you do, and all of a sudden, you just get something that comes out and go, that's interesting. I like that idea. Or maybe there's another way to do something that I'm, not aware of or whatever. Just that information sharing seems to be very valuable.
Absolutely. And any time, it is always welcome from anyone.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about your career. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I remember I was working at a bread factory. I was a line mechanic. I don't know if anybody knows of Mrs. Baird's Bread, but I was a line mechanic for them for 8 or 9 years. And it's like, man, there's got to be a better way. I'm tired of working nights. And all of a sudden, this little ad for Chipotle Mexican Grill comes up on monster.com. I don't know if anybody remembers monster.com.
Sure.
And it said, facility specialist. And it was working in restaurants, fixing restaurant equipment. So I was like, man, I'm going to apply to that. I'm just going to see. Well, it just so happened they had a Dallas facility tech, and they needed a facility tech for the west side of DFW. And I lived in the perfect spot. And they tell me to this day, yeah, we only hired you because of where you lived. But I knew there was more to it, but that was kind of like a little inside joke for a minute. So I did that for a long time, and it was close to 10 years. I was a facility tech and running day-to-day operations. I would wake up in the morning and go to a restaurant, and I'd fix the broke stuff. And we had them on a PM program, and anything that came along that needed to be fixed, that's what the facility specialist role was. Well, after doing that for a while, I was like, okay, there's got to be something else. So then I saw this ad for facility manager for Zoe's Kitchen. I was like, man, I'm gonna see if I can do that, and applied to that, and I became a facility manager for Zoe's Kitchen. And a lot of other things happened along the way. As we all know, 2020 happened, and but all the events that came about, and it led me to where I am today, Director of Facilities at DYNE Hospitality Group.
And you manage tropical smoothies, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have close to 120 locations now. I think the exact number is 118 restaurants, and that's, I say nationwide, but it's mainly based in the Southeast U.S. is where we are. Understand.
Okay, great. Well, talk a little bit about what's the most rewarding part of being a facility manager.
Just a day in and day out of helping people. And I think if you talk to a lot of facility managers, they would say the same thing, is we're helping restaurant operators solve problems. we do every single day of our lives. It just becomes part of our DNA and who we are. So I would say at the end of it all, it's helping people.
I think that's great. And I'm 100% agree. I think one of the things as I look back now, I'm on the other side of the fence on the service side, but back to facilities and a career was the ability to try to help people. And I told someone yesterday in a meeting, I said, I'm kind of like I look at facilities like a major league baseball team. I'm going to play 162 games. I'm not going to win them all. There are days I get beat. And what I hope is my number of wins outnumber my number of losses, because as a facility manager, the joke always was, you're never going to do it fast enough, quick enough, cheap enough. It's just part of the game. But those days when you have really great days and you're able to help someone that really their location or restaurant was in trouble and you were able to make something happen which fixed their problem, that's a really good feeling. And to have those people continue to contact you because they trust you doesn't always work out. It's the world in which we live, but it really helps and it really feels good when you're able to help them. And I think that's what most facility people look at is the ability to help and provide assistance, be a calming voice, to the restaurant operators.
Absolutely. Every day.
What do you think's the most challenging?
I would say that's one and the same. Just helping people overall is very challenging. As we know, I hate to bring COVID up again, but that was probably one of the most challenging times. And it wasn't during 2020 when everything happened. It was post 2020, coming into 2021. And that was when people just weren't back to work yet.
Right.
And that affected most of my service providers. And it was just trying to find somebody to do the work. It was, I don't want to overstate it by saying it was horrible, but that was the most challenging time in my career of facility manager, just finding someone to do the work, fix the broke stuff.
Sure.
And get the cafe back up and running how it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah. And I think it was challenging in a number of ways. One, supply chain for new equipment or replacement equipment was all but gone. So you're putting bad money into equipment to continue to repair it that normally you wouldn't do. And there's a payback for that, which, now we deal with. A lot of facility folks lost their job, during that time because companies had to cut back and look for different ways to do stuff with less people and less services going on. And then the other thing that would happen, in a location that had 3 fryers, well, because you're only doing drive-through or takeout, well, you only need 1. So 2 fryers would go down and they wouldn't get repaired. Well, then post-COVID, when things started gearing back up, all of a sudden you've got a whole list of equipment and things that have to be done and get back to operation, because now it's serving inside or whatever it may be. So all those factors, I think, are huge. And we're just now, really climbing our way back out of that, trying to get it back to normal.
Yeah, I think so now. I think we're just now 4 years later getting close to normalcy.
I think so. Agree 100%. We spoke about RIFMA, and we had just returned from the show in DC a few weeks ago. How's RIFMA kind of affected or helped your career?
A good example is this right here. It's allowed for connections to happen, facility person to facility person. It's allowed to find service providers. Some service providers work out, some don't, but it gives you that. That's what RIFMA's all about, is connecting with people and finding people to help you service the restaurants and keep the restaurants running in good working condition.
Sure. And it's the advice, like we spoke about earlier, it's kind of listening. One of the things was back in my Ruby Tuesday days, president of the company said, what's the best part of Riffman for you? So, sitting around the bar at night, listening to all the other people who do what I do talk, and just listen. And if you listen long enough, you're going to get some tidbits out of that, of something that will help you do your job, And the other part was, as hard as you think facilities is, and it's a difficult job, but you can listen to everybody else and they have the exact same problems you do. And you're not on an island. Now all of a sudden, it's not just me. Everybody has these problems. And then the ability, like you said, to ask people, who do you use in this part of the world for this type of service? And someone that you respect and trust is using company A. Well, that's better than Google. That's better than anything else you can go do on your own. That's someone you trust who's saying, this is who I use. Okay. That's the biggest part. I don't need to do a dog and pony or a show. Hey, if you work for my competition and they speak highly of you and I have respect for them, okay, we're 3/4 of the way down the road. Now we just need to talk and see if we can make something happen, So.
Absolutely. I think I've found 3 or 4 companies at RIFMA this year with that example right there. And I was able to return the favor to some of my counterparts that I've known for a long time. So we'll use these people over here. I mean, they've always helped me, and sure enough, hey, thanks, man. And same way, I would thank you very much for the connection. I appreciate it. So
Sure.
at the end of that, it makes us all better.
People helping people. That's really what it's about. Kind of what are your main responsibilities with DYNE Hospitality as a facility manager?
Any and all things facilities related. That encompasses the day-to-day break fix, the decisions on replacement, capital improvement. I'm responsible for purchasing equipment. I'm responsible for all the auxiliary programs such as waste management, pest control, all the grease traps. I'm responsible for finding those service providers, getting those contracts signed. We also utilize Service Channel. We're responsible for maintaining that whole software platform, including the contract negotiation that comes up every 3 or 4 years. Just everything. They have given me the responsibility of managing our complete facilities program over here.
Are you involved in new unit construction at all, or just basically existing?
Existing. We do have a director of construction over here, and she's wonderful. She knows what she's doing. The way we do it is she will build them, and then we will have a turnover to construction day, and that's where operations comes into that location with facilities, and she will turn that cafe over to us. And that's how we do that.
That helps when you have a smooth transition, because when you don't, and it's construction versus facilities, for lack of a better term, that can go wrong. And who's left kind of holding the bag is the restaurant person or team in the middle. It's not construction, it's facilities. No, it's not. It's still construction. And at the end of the day, nobody's doing anything except pushing back and forth and not, taking care of the issue as it needs to be done.
Yeah, I do have to say, I really do like our transition period there, because the cafe will be turned over to operations. And then every piece of information that's possible is given. There's always something that's missed. It's just we're all human. But the who to call list for what is given out. And then I give my first facilities demonstration to the cafe manager. Hey, here's how you change your water filter. Here's how you do this. If you need this, here's Service Channel, and that information is given to the operators as well. So it's like a 2-step process. It's turned over to me, and then I turn it over to operations, and with a whole bunch of information given in between that process.
And then one other thing you mentioned that there as you were speaking, I wanted to touch on just a minute is you kind of show restaurants, when you kind of take the handoff from construction, how to do certain things. And one of the things that, again, back to COVID one more time, is people got a lot more used as a facility person to working from home and not traveling and not being in front of your stores. And I think that's one of the things that kind of hurts sometimes is how much knowledge a facility director or manager can give to the locations face to face. You know, not only what do you teach them, but what do you see and things that can help. And it's simple things, you know. You can walk around in an existing restaurant all day and say, turn the faucets off. Okay. Half of the people will hear you and do that. But if you do a little piece of paper and you hand them something that says if you let this faucet run all day long, X number of hours times X number of days times a month times a year, this is how much money it costs or wasted, you know. And that affects your bottom line and so on, affects the restaurant's bottom line. When you can put numbers in front of it and actually show, it's much better than just, hey, turn the faucets off.
Right.
There's no meaning behind that. It's just a to do. It's like telling your kids to do something, you know, clean your room. Why? Well, because I said, well, okay, that might have worked and might not. But before we can go to the park, you got to clean your room. Oh, okay. That's different, you know. And the restaurant's the same way, the ability to teach and the ability to help and provide that information. I think that's really great that you do that. I always wanted to always talk to the restaurant teams anytime I could. And not only to try to teach, but to listen. You know, if I hear the same problem 4 times, that means it's a big deal to the operations team. And I need to go figure it out. You know, it's not one-off location that has a problem. No, this is an issue. And I need to figure out what that is and take care of it.
Right. I think one of the best parts to that as well is letting that general manager and that district manager see you and putting a face to a name. It's just not, well, who's Mike Anderson? Well, they've all met their facility manager. They all know who he is. They've probably sat down and had a cup of coffee or a Coke with them, and they spent that quality time and just getting to know that familiarity. So they do have the confidence if they do have an issue, they know who they're calling rather than just some guy that, you know, it's 3 states away.
Sure. So. Or works in the corporate office. Okay, well, that means this. No, I'm a guy. I'm doing a job just like you are. It's a different kind of job. You're right, 100%. Tell me kind of what you look for in a vendor partner. What's important to you when you're choosing a vendor to work for your company?
Integrity is the most important part, especially this day and age. It's, you know, I don't have the ability to sit there and keep my thumb on a vendor, and nor do I want to, or nor do we need to. You know, I always tell a service provider when I'm onboarding, it's like, I'm going to give you about 10 work orders. And if these 10 work orders go off smoothly, and say we have a problem with 2 of them, you've done great, and you're going to get more work orders. But if I give you 10 work orders and 8 out of the 10 have an issue, I'm not using you anymore. And I don't mean that from just going into the cafe, fixing the faucet and walking out. I mean from when the work order is received to the very end in the invoice process. Like I said before, you do use Service Channel. And, you know, if it's a new service provider, I will teach them how to use Service Channel effectively, because there's value in, hey, if you've never used Service Channel before, but I'm going to teach you how to do this because I want to be a good, you know, I want to have this good vendor relationship with you.
Sure.
But I think above all else is integrity is the most important part of anything we do. I've got to have complete trust in you. So I always tell them too, I was like, look, I want to make you a millionaire, but I don't want to do it on one work order. So if you come into my restaurant and you're charging me $900 to fix a leaking faucet, you better have a good reason why. And we're going to talk through this.
Sure.
But, you know, good manager sign offs. We need that manager sign off stating that you were there, and I need to know how many hours you were on site, and that's what Service Channel was allowed me to do is help me manage that whole piece.
Sure. I like the integrity part. I think the communication piece of that is huge, as we know, just like in your restaurant, and Tropical Smoothie makes drinks and makes food and so on. Something will go wrong today. Somebody's order will be messed up. It's part of life. It's how it happens. Same with a vendor. They will make a mistake. I'm not worried about the mistake. I'm worried about what are you doing about it? And are you letting me know that it happened? Okay, big deal. You made a mistake. Tell me what you're doing about it and make sure that you tell me. I don't want to track you down to try to find out what happened. You tell me, so honesty, transparency, that sort of thing. And to your point, following the process, Service Channel, I use Service Channel a lot. They have processes. There's ways you have to do things. Do it. Follow it. You agreed to that when you said we want the work. I mean, that's kind of part of it, So
well, we have it's like all restaurant chains, we process several thousand work orders every year. And if I continually have an administrative issue with one or two service providers, it's a beatdown. If I got to stop everything I'm doing to fix your administrative errors, and I'm doing this 3 or 4 times a week, that's a problem. And we'll have that conversation several times. But then eventually it's, hey man, I appreciate everything you're doing, but every single time you're in one of the restaurants, I got to stop and go backwards and fix this. And so that's an important part for me too, as well.
Absolutely. You're not getting paid to manage their services. I mean, they're supposed to do the work. And yeah, occasional blip will happen, but as you said, when it's continuous over and over, then that's time away that you could be doing something else.
Right.
And you have a hard time explaining that to the people you work for. Well, I continue to use this guy, but I'm spending half my time working on fixing his stuff. That usually doesn't fly. So how would you describe your management style with the restaurants that you work with?
So I've thought about this question, and I know there's formal words for the management style, but at the end of the day, I couldn't really come up with anything that fit me. Other than this, it kind of goes on the same path as what do you look for in a service provider, and that's the way my duties are where I'm at right now. Is just show me what you got. Show me what you got. I'm gonna give it to you and show me how you perform. Because I just really don't know any other way. I don't know any fancy buzzwords for that, but it's
sure.
Show me what you got.
Proof's in the pudding. I mean that's really kind of it. If you're, if your company can do all the things that you're telling me, okay, show me. I'll give it to you. Show me. And if you can,
I think that's
good. We'll continue moving down the road. But really, I'm like, here it is. You're a professional service company. You should be able to do this. Show me, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I think one of the things you said, and at the early point of our conversation, is just about helping people, and so a style is to be there to help when they need you. I mean, I think that's without putting words in, but as you describe that, you're there to help people. The better the team and the restaurants do, the better it is for you, the better it is for your department, better it is for your company. Is to be there to help. And that means a lot of things. Give advice, teach, scold, for lack of a better term, every now and then when it's not done right, and things like that, and educate, and then not only on the restaurant side, but for your vendors. Teach your vendors. Have them teach you. Your really best vendors are out in your stores all the time. They see things. They know things. They're your eyes because you can't be there every day. They can. And many times they're out there all the time. Let them help you too.
So we recently just completed a major project in one of our restaurants, and my number one service provider that I had, I couldn't fly out on the dates I wanted to fly out on. It was during the eclipse, and plane tickets were astronomical. I mean, beyond comprehension. So I asked my most trusted service provider, I said, look, I'm doing a flooring project here. Can you be at the cafe on this night just for a few hours, just to set everything going? So when you get there, I want you to wear a t-shirt, and I want it to say boss, because I wanted him to represent in a way, you aren't, even though you don't directly work for DYNE Hospitality Group, I trust him enough to represent DYNE Hospitality Group. And it was great. And because he is in our cafes every single day, he knows our cafes way better than I ever will, just because he's in the inner workings every single day. Mm-hmm. And it worked out flawlessly. Once that all passed, I was there to assist and help put the restaurant back together. But that just ties everything up.
Sure.
So it's with that vendor partner relationship.
Yeah, it builds that relationship, and your partner knows, and many people don't ask, but I don't always say, okay, if you're me, tell me the 3 or 4 things that you'd go fix in my buildings right away. What do we do? You talk about steps, restaurant people having to take steps on the kitchen line. You hear it all the time. Tell me, what is that about? Where, what do I need to do? What do I need to focus on? What do you hear? All the time, because they're in there and they see things and they're like, I wonder why they did this. This doesn't make any sense. Well, I want to know that, I'm okay with that. If I'm the one that did it and I did it wrong, then I'll fix it. I'm okay with that. And just, I think that's a great example of trust and partnership with your vendor to work together. So,
yeah. It was great. It was a new vendor working with an existing vendor. It cost me a couple $100 to get him in there, but it was well worth it. 100% sure. Well worth it.
Absolutely. And I got one more question for today. I guess when you and I sat at RIFMA and just kind of had a conversation about how you do your job and things I've learned and things like that, was there anything in there that you said, hey, that's something I can use? Anything.
So I've always thought this to myself, but I never will forget. You did tell me, and I hope you remember too, your customer is the restaurant operators. Mm-hmm. And I always knew that, and I always had that in the back of my mind. But to hear another facility manager say that in the way that I thought about it, that's what I took above all. And at the end of the day, that's 100% true. Our restaurant operators are our customers. Melissa Jackson, our COO, she is my customer. And our ops directors, all of them, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they're happy. So just to hear you say that, your customers are operations, I think that goes a long way.
That's a great point. And speaking of Melissa, I would tell you 10 years, 11 years now since I last worked at Ruby's, and Melissa's time was somewhere around the same as mine. She's still my customer because she wanted me to spend a few minutes and talk with you and, work together to share some knowledge or things I'd learned and stuff like that. So 11 years plus after us working together, she's still my customer.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I look at it, and was honored for the fact that she had spoken to you about spending a few minutes talking to me. That's one of the best things that anybody could ever say, is that someone trusts you after a ton of time to, still be valuable and hopefully be able to help. So very appreciative of her and the opportunity that you and I got to spend in DC just talking about facilities in general. So much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Yes, sir.
Michael, that's all my questions for today. I certainly appreciate your time on FM Corner and kind of giving us a little perspective from your world of facilities and what you deal with your customers and so on. I think for all facility folks, it's really important to remember, again, who your customer is, take care of your customer, and that's in many different ways. You know, that's helping them when they need it. That's educating them. It's teaching. It's learning from them. It's being that voice on the other end to listen to what their problems are and help them. And there's myriads of ways you can do that, tons of ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, that's the job, you know. And I was taught at a very young age at Ruby Tuesday, if you're not serving the actual customer, you need to be serving someone who is. And that's what we do as facility people. We're not technically serving the customer who's eating in our restaurant or whatever, but what we are doing is we're serving the people that do. And that's the restaurant team and the restaurant management. So anyway, I certainly appreciate the time. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And we look forward to another episode of FM Corner next week. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate the time.